And it's now 9 o'clock. We're going to start on time this morning. Good morning and welcome everybody, and a special welcome to our international participants, and I guess a good afternoon to those of you joining us from Europe and from other parts of the globe. I am Mary Matzenbacher, the president of Go West Summit. Thank you for joining us this morning for our keynote education session, Reshaping the Future of Global Tourism, Getting It Right Together. I've got some housekeeping items to go over first. First of all, you've been muted by the host. You are encouraged to use the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen to communicate with each other. We will be having question and answer at the end of the session, so please enter your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. All of these education sessions will be recorded and posted to our website, so you can view them again, you can view them on demand. And now, please allow me to introduce our VIP guests this morning, Helen Morano and Carolina Scarles. Helen Morano, you may know and recognize, is our past director of our National Travel and Tourism Office. Helen is currently based in the UK. She capitalizes on her extensive global network of government and industry colleagues of all management levels. As you know, she's well recognized as a professional in travel and tourism. She's an expert and advocate for travel and tourism. Her capacities include being a strategic thinker and planner, as well as a consensus builder from a destination management perspective. Her experience comes from both a private sector global membership organization in the World Travel and Tourism Council, as well as from top government level leadership positions. She's a strong political acumen for over a decade of leading the National Travel and Tourism Office for the US. She currently serves as chair of the Board of Trustees for the Travel Foundation, advisory board member of Blacks in Travel and Tourism Collaborative. She's secretary of the board for Artworks for Freedom. She's on the advisory board for University of Surrey School of Hospitality and Management, and she's a member of the Future of Tourism Coalition. I don't know how you have time to join us this morning, Helen, but we're thrilled to have you with us. Her technical proficiency is in market research with an expertise in building, directing, presenting comprehensive statistical systems for economic impact measures. Her entrepreneurial style was honed by establishing new departments and functions within organizations and overseeing very large initiatives. Helen's approach to any endeavor is through teamwork and coalition building for maximum impacts and success. And we've all been had the benefit of those successful impacts in the past. And thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
We're also honored today to have Carolina Scarles. She is a professor of technology and society and director of the Center for Digital Transformation, in the visitor economy in the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at the University of Surrey in the UK. Her research focuses on key areas of sustainability, technology, and society. Her current research projects explore a range of issues, including immersive and augmented experiences of travel, including virtual experiences of art and destinations, and the development of next-generation paper technology and travel. She's also working with Connecting with Nature for Recreation and Leisure during COVID-19. She's an international advisor for the Geographies of Leisure and Tourism Research Group for the Royal Geographical Society with the Institute of British Geographers. She's also a non-executive director for Visit Surrey. So both of these women, thank you for your time this morning. Very busy women with great expertise. We're thrilled to have you with us this morning. Please welcome Helen and Carolina. Thank you for joining us this morning. And now I'm going to turn it over to Helen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And Lisa, I hope she's there. And many of you others that are in the audience that I wish I could see, because I know you're there. And so I say hello, and I do miss you being on the other side of the pond and in lockdown, as they say. I'm also really thrilled to be on the stage with such an accomplished professor, Caroline Scarles, and we have worked together closely on some other issues as I serve on the advisory board for the University of Surrey. But I think that you'll benefit from a lot of her expertise and insights on the technological front in particular. Well, here we are. It's time for me to share time with you, you to share time with me, but most of all to share heart. This has been devastating for our industry, I know, and I just wanted to be able to take advantage of this opportunity that bless her, Mary and Lisa offered to share some global tourism perspective, but more to think about some thoughts on the path forward with some examples globally that would make you hopefully not feel so alone in what you're challenged by, but also have it confirmed in what you're accomplishing in this period of stoppage and or slowness. In the US, I know some of it's opened up a bit, and particularly for domestic travel. So I think it's great that you're all participating in Go West Summit, and I think the education series is a good opportunity to stop and think a bit, and hopefully we will bring some enrichment to your thought process, and most of all, not feel alone. So Caroline, I think you're going to take us through sort of what we're doing today.
Absolutely, Helen, and thank you to everyone for joining us for this session this morning. It's a real pleasure to be with you and to share the stage with Helen as we provide some insight and some thoughts as to, well, where we will go. So to start with, we're going to, as Helen's indicated, just look at some of the global recovery scenarios. We're going to look at some of these regional impact projections, but in doing that, what we would like to really do is share with you this new story for tourism. We've all been through such challenging times, and as Helen says, really we are in this together. So we would like to give you some thoughts, some reflections, some inspiration as to how we can move forward through examples of action, and of course sharing things in terms of resources. But the key in all of this is the idea of collaboration and partnership. We're all in this together, and we will all come through this together. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. And you might have noticed an odd accent. It's okay. She's Scottish. She's still a good woman.
It's all right.
So let's start by just at least confirming that, yes, we're devastated in this industry. We have been on the front line of devastation, and it's over 200 million job losses at this point. But according to Tourism Economics, Oxford Economics and WTTC, certainly it's been a 60% and plus job loss, but most of all, over 73% from the international and 64% on average globally for international and domestic tourism. And I know that you all are feeling that pain. I think looking at it regionally might give you a little bit of hope that the jobs lost in the North American region are not as dramatic as that in Asia Pacific. For example, actually the North American region has been the least, of the impact, it's been the least impacted. But I think in Asia Pacific, I had heard someone told me that there were like 20,000 travel agents, I think a few weeks ago. It's probably more now that were jobs lost or closed their businesses. And I know they probably have 500,000 over there, but the principle is that we are losing businesses, not just employees. And Europe, you can see, is extremely impacted by the COVID, and therefore it will have an effect on discretionary income for international travel. So it's important to keep the relationships going to help them keep their heads above water. And you can see that the decline in international visitors is most marked in North America. So I feel your pain. I think I'm not going to go through the rigmarole of all the different kinds of quarantines and requirements for travel. You've, I'm sure, engaged on trying to understand them, keep track of them. In the US, it varies by state sometimes, but for international travel, it's like a closed door. For Australia, it's going to be shut for another year. For UK, they had just sort of announced, even before they had worked with some of the local hotels, hotels on how they were going to require a 10-day quarantine along with testing before you go and testing when you get here. And also, by the way, adding a £1,750 per person cost to having to stay in a specified hotel for 10 days. And that's quite a different investment than just going on a holiday, as I said, but it was to deter, in the middle of the crisis, to deter any more travel into England. And I think at this point, we may be seeing light at the end of the tunnel, as the Prime Minister yesterday just announced, looking at about June 21st, when they may open the doors for travel, international travel, as well as the domestic, having been released a little bit earlier. But I mean, this is not unique. In Vietnam, it's 21 days quarantine. And they had a travel bubble that was between Australia and New Zealand. And one or two cases came up from New Zealand that when they arrived of COVID, when they arrived in Australia, that shut them down, so that stopped that travel bubble. So we're constantly stop and start, and that's probably the hardest part, and also keeping track of all the requirements. This is why it's important from the national tourism offices to be clear and communicating, as well as your own destinations. So that leads us into, I think, rather than belabor what was and what is, let's look at a new way forward, and with the news story. And the news story starts with opening it up and preparing to open it up mindfully, with people of conscientious and conscious travel, and being much more aware of what the goodness is in the silver lining of this pandemic, in what it's brought out for both the environment as well as the social community environment of less travelers and a chance to see what's in their own neighborhood. At the same time, the other silver lining has clearly been that it is seeing what travel and tourism does for communities, not just the nation. It certainly has been recognized now across the globe on the importance and value of travel and tourism, and it's engaging in conversations with departments across the board. And health department now is the leader in most governments for what needs to be considered, but certainly travel and tourism has been gaining ground and seeing that we are definitely a potent industry.
Very much so, Helen. And I think one of the key things there is that idea around value and where we understand value to be positioned. So here what we're suggesting actually is that we need to accept and we need to embrace the opportunities that we have in front of us. And of course, the challenge we have is the challenge of less is more. So looking at this idea then of quality over quantity, and all at the same time, again, just reflecting and being accepting of the fact that there will be a new look for the near future. We are all becoming used to wearing masks. We're all becoming used to socially distancing. And of course, as people open up again and start traveling again, there will be some elements of apprehension. Of course there will be. So again, it's that looking at reassurance and looking at providing that safe, familiar environment for people. So really, just in this last point, looking at quality, not quantity. This is a really interesting and exciting in many ways opportunity for us to envision a future that is different. Difference is always edged with a bit of fearfulness, of course, because it's unknown. But again, there is so much opportunity that comes with this. And we've got a couple of examples we're going to share with you now.
So I think from my exposure, I had watched a really interesting presentation and awareness of Dubai as an example, global example. And it really has been something that I think you all have been, some of you destinations have been practicing in the Go West arena. Keep their appetite for coming to Dubai, hope till we meet again. And they did a lot of social media, a lot of advertising or outreach, and to people who have traveled there before. Then they went through on the promise, we will be ready when you come. We're doing all of the protocols. We're fastidious in our cleanliness to begin with. We will enhance that even more so. We will ensure that things are set aside that are socially distanced so that you won't have to worry about that. And we'll provide what's needed to make it a safe and secure environment to trust to come and live your story for when you can travel to us.
And we're seeing a similar thing in Peru as well. Again, a really interesting campaign here, the hashtag Dream Then Travel. And again, what we're really suggesting at this point in time, of course, we know, and you know yourself, it's important to continue those connections with the visitors who would otherwise be coming to see you. So it's that idea of keeping desires alive and inspiring dreams and inspiring futures once borders open up again and once we have got that freedom of movement. And in the hashtag Dream Then Travel campaign, again, it's that embracing and recognizing of the need to be prepared for safe adventures, that there will be that nurturing and taking care and a commitment to taking care of tourists when they do arrive. But really interesting with the Peruvian campaign is this idea of richness and togetherness. Actually, as we mentioned before, this refocusing value onto a value of life, a value of togetherness, a value of kind of mutual experiences and connection. And this real strong underpinning message of actually we now, given the experiences that we're going through, yes, I heard a phrase once, we're all in the same storm but a different boat. And I think that's quite very true. And, you know, but it's the idea that actually we are becoming a global family who have been through such a terrible time. And actually, when we can be together again, there should be lots of celebration.
Yeah, and being on the same stone in the same boat means we don't want it to sink. We're going to all work together to keep it afloat, right?
Okay.
So continuing on the news story, and the approach that we would see is this has been a time for revisioning and reinventing. And I know that there's been some good examples through Go West, as we've seen across the globe, on ways to prepare and basically learning from the lessons of others or from your own hardship on how you can convert that into not just a positive, oh, it's so great. No, it's a real action-oriented solution for learning from others to help you go forward. And in that is certainly working with the relationships that you have and your tour operators from all over, travel agents. These are important relationships. You need to continue to nurture the existing ones, but also it's been a time to cultivate new ones, both within and outside the sector. And Caroline, I think you have some thoughts on the outside the sector as well.
I do, absolutely. And I think this is where we have to recognize kind of our own limits and boundaries of our expertise and our own experiences, our own knowledge as tour operators and as destinations. And we've got an example later on that we're going to share, which is a really great example of how different attractions are able to partner with technological organizations. But the key point here is really about embracing a culture of sharing and caring, without sounding like something that my 10-year-old would say, but you know, the idea of sharing is caring, you know, actually sharing solutions, creating partnerships, collaborating, you know, getting to that point where we really do value and appreciate the knowledge that we all have. And in doing that, what we're suggesting here is that actually it's this idea of grabbing next generation of travel trends. There are opportunities for us to take this time to reflect on the experiences we offer. The tourism industry, of course, is an experience economy. And so how can we actually create new itineraries? How can we build on what we already have? How can we actually discover new technologies, and more on that later? But again, also think about how people are moving now. We're now used to working and living in different ways, in ways that we've not been as comfortable and familiar with. Of course, this does come with challenges. We don't suggest it doesn't, but really considering the changes in infrastructures and normal habits now, how can we embed those into what we offer too?
And on the new itineraries, it is looking at not going to the tried and true and trying to bring your customers back, but finding, teaching your customers and educating them and working with the destination to find new off the beaten path areas to discover, because it is wanting to be not in too close to people, but more in this opportunity for new discovery. Mm-hmm. And I think as an example in the new discovery is Visit California. I attended their Outlook Forum and it was terrific, the marketing Outlook Forum that they put on last week. But this whole campaign that they started on respect pretty much boils it down to responsible travel code, is embracing basically the behavior of the traveler as well as the responsibility of the businesses that are welcoming the traveler. So it's a mutual street, and I herald that effort. it's like Hawaii, going out and talking to the residents and realizing they don't want to all have all the tourism come back in the same form, get away from the mass tourism, but they started saying, let's change us, put us into being a cultural center, and that will give more respect for what the community has to offer and celebrating what Hawaii's about.
Again, it's that quality rather than quantity. And also these building ideas of building new relationships. So the One Seed Entrepreneurs is a wonderful example in Colorado about actually how through tour operator experiences, we can also invest in people and invest in communities and give people opportunities to really thrive and grow through entrepreneurship and innovation. So for example, here you can see on the infographic on the left side of the screen that, you know, something that is a relatively, potentially seen as a relatively low investment of the average loan being approximately $461, but looking at giving up over 760 loans already, that investment back into communities, that commitment to developing and growing communities in these new and different ways becomes absolutely fundamental to changing how we can build these relationships and where value lies.
I think in New Zealand, we're going to be, you all are going to be offered a nice session. I think it's tomorrow from New Zealand. So you'll be able to learn more detail. But did you want to just scope those quickly? Because we have to keep moving.
Absolutely. In New Zealand, there's been some really excellent examples here around, you know, for example, the Christchurch, you know, explore your place. You know, this is where, again, it's rethinking how we understand tourism. Of course, traditionally, we look at people who are domestic or international travellers coming for a visit of more than 1 or 2 nights. But actually here, what Christchurch have done is really encouraged us to focus on local people, people who are living in this city, people who are living very close to our towns, our villages, our cities. And actually they encouraging them to reinvest and spend their dollar in their local areas. We've seen such a rise of hyper local tourism over the last few months, when of course we haven't been locked down. But again, in those months, visiting what's on our doorstep. And even here in Surrey, we've seen this tremendously. People, instead of going straight into London, actually going to the museums or the galleries when they're open, right on our doorstep. So that Explore Your Place, if you're not familiar with it, do go and have a look.
So we're allowed to walk with one other person, especially if you're a household of one, which I am. And I have to say that I live in an area of woods south of London, and it is fantastic, all the new paths I found, because I'm walking with some of the local people that have walked dogs. Now they're walking Helen, but it puts us out there in areas that I've never seen before, and I'm so excited of the new discovery. So I think that's a good advantage we have right now. And I thought maybe that sort of leads us into how it's a really co-designing and knowing how to create between businesses. And maybe you could speak to this, Caroline.
Absolutely, Helen. I think one of the fundamental things here, as we move out of this, the whole premise of our talk has been around that idea of working together, partnership, collaboration, co-designing, sharing knowledges between businesses. So actually the B2B communication and the B2B, it's not just about communication, but actually the collaboration becomes absolutely vital. Because what we know, I'm sure as destinations yourselves, you will be aware that of course the tourist board is becoming like a hub. It's almost like we exist on a spider's web, and the tourist board, the destination management organization, becomes the heart of that web, the heart of the hub. And there's a couple of quotes here from some recent research that I've been involved in that says, you know, it's kind of like a spider web, and at the center you have the destination management organization, and we need to celebrate that. We need to, again, invest in the opportunities that a DMO brings to a destination. But in order to do that, as DMOs and as destinations, we need to know the nuanced businesses, not just the old tried and tested. Of course, we need to continue to support those, as we've said before, but actually we need to know the other businesses in town, because actually in doing that, that helps us reach these new audiences and build these new itineraries that we're talking about. So really stimulating these cultures of cooperation and sharing becomes absolutely vital going forward.
Well, and part of that has been using the digital environment to spread the word or entice people or educate people. And I love that the Miles and Longwoods International survey that they've done since the beginning, and the benchmark survey they've done for travelers, has definitely seen that over a fifth are interested of the American travelers are interested in learning about the online virtual tours of museums and other attractions that you've all been putting out there, or they're interested in the videos just to get inspired of where to go next and new places and opportunities, and live streams of performances by local musicians. I feel badly for the whole arts community, the musicians. They aren't able to go about and bring their kind of talent to the location, so they're doing it through live stream. It's absolutely brilliant. And then, of course, the images and virtual reality experiences are becoming much more visible now. It used to be looked at as sort of a disruptor, and oh, nobody's ever going to switch over to virtual reality. My destination has a heart and pulse of its own. You have to come and feel it. Well, that may be true, but now we have an opportunity to be showing things in a way that will reach some other audiences that Caroline will address shortly.
Mm. And I think this is one of the things when we actually talk about digital, in no way are we suggesting that digital replaces the physical. There's nothing like going physically to visit a destination and being there and feeling the ground beneath your feet and tasting all the foods that you have to offer and experiencing all these things. But what we have to recognize, and there's probably a word on the slide that you haven't heard before, which is phygital. Quite an academic thing to say, but it's this, basically it's a fusion, as you can tell, of physical and digital. And of course, as Kraus said, virtual tours are no longer a nice to have, particularly in the last few months. And we're not just talking about virtual reality here. Again, I think this is not something that you have to be at the cutting edge of technology. We're talking about everything from websites and webcams right through to virtual reality, some augmented reality in there as well. And a quick example I wanted to just share with you, because Helen, I am aware that we've got time is pressing on, but
no, I think we're okay. That was not my signal.
Super. So a quick example then from a gentleman called David Jarrett, who is from a university here in the UK. And he did some interesting research on webcams. Now, I want to share with you this for a particular reason. And I'm going to go down about this in scale. So we have Skyline webcams, who he found had an increase from 70 million to 120 million views per month. Now that's great. They're a big global organization with live webcams. But then you bring this down to individual attraction level and individual destination level. Edinburgh Zoo, one of Scotland's premier destinations, before lockdowns, were having 100,000 views per month. This skyrocketed to over 5 million views. And likewise, Brockholes Nature Reserve, Dave Jarrett found, a small nature reserve in England, went from 850 to just shy of 14,000 views per month. Now, when we're talking about continuing to engage visitors, when we're talking about continuing to connect with and provide that sense of reassurance that we are still there as destinations, we really can't wait to welcome people back, these types of opportunities become really quite invaluable. The last one there around First Air virtual aviation facility. Now, this was an example where they were able to use virtual reality to actually guide people through the mechanisms that they put in place in terms of their airline facilities. And what they saw as a result of that, being able to access that, they saw a 50% increase on bookings. So again, real great opportunities for digital going forward. Helen, could you just flick to the next slide for me?
Yeah, I was going to say that I was going to insert, like Delta did your whole, and United actually, they did a tour where you could go right into the to the airplane and see all that they've done inside and underneath and throughout. So it's been very facile for engendering trust.
Absolutely, and that's so important, the element of trust and familiarizing people, because people will expect experiences to be different, and they will need those reassurances. But what we can see now is that the momentum for digital really has picked up, and that's Steve Perillo, CEO of Travel World VR. But again, just a couple of examples of how it's not just about creating VR kind of marketing tours or of a destination, but what we've seen in the last year has been such creativity and innovation. So if we take the example there on the left side, Jeremy Mintzberg, he's a tour leader in Berlin and took it upon himself to actually start live streaming tours of Berlin that people could come and connect with. Really a low cost solution, but being able to continue to engage. And you've got that right through Visit Faroe Islands. We're doing remote tours where I actually took a horseback tour of the Faroe Islands from my office. Didn't get
and you didn't fall off, right?
Didn't fall off and didn't get a sore bottom, so that was always a benefit. So again, continuing to connect and engage. And then at the other end of that, we've got companies such as Amazon who are launched Amazon Explore. Now, this is again really exciting because you can go on there and you can look at 45 minutes and purchase 45 minutes of a guided tour of a locale. You can go and have a cookery lesson. There's a whole range of things. If you haven't seen it before, again, go and have a look. It's a great opportunity for tour guides and tour leaders who would otherwise not be able to engage to continue to find that point of engagement with visitors.
So this is a way to continue the relationship you have internationally in creating itineraries and working together, and not letting that relationship languish during this time. And this was amazing. I think this is quite interesting.
So this was some work that we did. We've been working with Smartify now for several years. And Smartify are the world's leading augmented reality app provider for art galleries. They've got over 1.2 million users worldwide. It's a free to download app. And basically what happens is, before obviously the global pandemic emerged, people would use it to walk into galleries, as you can see the lady on the left side there, hold up the phone, and you'd be able to augment multiple layers of multimedia. So it could be text, it could be video, it could be audio. And again, it was up to the gallery as to what the content they provided, and again, what they made available. But the key thing here was, during lockdown, these are all still available. So you can go on, you can download the Smartify app for free. It's available, and I feel like I'm doing a marketing, but it's available on Android and iPhone. And so you can download it for free. And you can actually go on tours of the Louvre, you can go on tours of Watts Gallery, where we did our research just up the road. And again, what a great opportunity for actually keeping that connection, keeping your galleries open, your tours alive. But again, this comes back to what we talked before about in terms of collaboration and the idea of digital first. So galleries and museums, attractions, we don't necessarily have the capacity to build these solutions ourselves. But it's about partnering with the experts who do, and the experts who understand our sectors and understand what a visitor experience is like and what is best in terms of the appropriate use of technology. That's something that I'm very much advocate. It's appropriate use of technology. It's not a one size fits all. You don't have to spend a ridiculous amount of your already limited resources to do this. But it's about building those collaborations, because in doing that, you create opportunities. You can reach out to new audiences. When the doors open again, of course, people will come back through. But there's also that opportunity of really continuing to engage with audiences who perhaps would never be physically present because they can't travel for whatever reason.
Thank you. So I think we're nearing the last of our news story slides, because it's embracing and ensuring the holistic stewardship at the end of the day, and engaging, as I said earlier, the community and the residents directly. Like, it's like running a country. You know, President Biden has to listen to all the voices. You need to listen to all the voices within your venue alone, but it's really comes to the heart of the destination to help orchestrate that. And at the same time, working with the residents gives an opportunity for looking at new measures to identify the social as well as the environmental impacts of travel, and moving away from the measurement of volume. I mean, I really have a big issue that we do not need to go back to 2019. We definitely need to look at, well, revenues, because that's part of the equation, which stands up your police force and stands up your fire fire force as well. I think they're called fire force. Anyway, the point is that they contribute back into the community, the revenues do. But it's really looking at what is it doing to the community and my environment. And I think you've got some study work going. I know WTTC and you and WTO are engaging.
Absolutely. And also we've been doing some work again with in and around the art communities on this as well. So when we talk about social impacts, it really is about, yes, absolutely, we need to understand the economic impacts, we need to understand the revenues, we need to understand the job creation, etc. But we do have to also think about the ways in which tourism contributes to societal well-being and societal wealth, how we can contribute to social justice, how we can open up opportunities for the community in a whole range of different ways. We mentioned before about the one seed entrepreneurship, and that's a really good example about the way in which, again, not just that entrepreneur, but the social benefits that come to that too, linking us as a sector within tourism out into education, out into health, and a whole range of opportunities there. Mm-hmm. And I think, Helen, that links to the point we would like to make around reset and respect.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, go on. Sorry.
No, you do it. I mean, it's just understanding and responding sort of to the needs, but that's what you were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. And it's kind of resetting the traveler's mindset as well as the destination's mindset. So again, setting out that idea of respecting, but also doing that in a mindful way. Again, not expecting too much from a destination, but expecting that there's the experiences that will be based in the cultures of the communities that are
right.
destinations.
Right. So this is all sounding great. You know, I mean, it's not meant to be platitudes. These are things that a lot of you are already working on, and I commend you for it. And I recognize that it's not an easy path forward, but it has to be an action path forward. And there's no way that we could not benefit from this stop in time, so to speak, and take a look around and restart differently. It's kind of energizing for that, because we really, working together, have a chance to get it right now. And I think some of the examples of where it has been moving towards that direction, there's an organization called the Thompson Okanagan Regions Travel Association, and they have a very good example in British Columbia of what would be regenerative travel. And they have taken from one of their indigenous tribes there this sort of 7 affirmations for 7 generations. It's like a code perhaps, but it's really again about engaging with the community and respecting what's around you, and taking on some of the values so that it continues on into the next generations. Visit Flanders has done a really good reflection of how to lift up that travel and tourism doesn't have to be a downside, it's the upside.
Absolutely.
Did you want to speak to that a little bit?
I do, actually, because I think one of the things with the idea of regenerative travel, it takes the ideas of sustainability and sustainable travel and brings them even further on, because this is actually about, you know, creating better destinations, better opportunities, rather than maintaining and sustaining as they are. So Visit Flanders have got an absolutely wonderful philosophy underpinning this, the idea of an economy of meaning that creates this cycle of virtue, that it's about the giving back in a positive and continually bettering communities and destinations and society through tourism. And to do that, it's really embedded in this idea of storytelling. So we mentioned before about tourism, as we all know, everyone on the call knows tourism is about experience creation and experience sharing, but it's also about storytelling and hearing the voices of communities and hearing the voices of the travelers as well. And actually, the thing that really kind of captured my attention with the Visit Flanders is that it's fundamentally based in the sense of well-being and the creation of these ecosystems of health, in that everybody is working together. And actually, rather than moving towards a kind of maintaining and sustaining, it's actually about this metaphor of flourishing, so that everyone benefits from this. And again, the Travel to Tomorrow, it's not something that's just emerged through the lockdown. This has been going for a few years now.
Yep, as in Thompson Okanagan region too, and it's really capitalizing on the soul of the place.
Absolutely.
So we're going to do a few slides here that is just talking about framing it, and I know we're coming into our time zone, so we'll skip we're not going to skip these. We're going to skim these a little bit. But just so I'm a big believer in the big picture and making sure that people really know that it's global tourism is connected, and the mainstay of it is. Go for it, Caroline.
Yeah, I will. The mainstay of it really is, and we've said this right from the beginning. When we think about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we think about this global framework. We have all these goals set out for us, but the one that really strikes a chord for me is Goal 17. It's the idea that actually, in order to achieve this vision of a sustainable future, we do need partnerships and collaborations. And, Helen, we've said before, there's many people of you in the audience who are already working in this way. But again, it's that idea of creating a collaboration economy, working together to prosper. The idea that you may have heard the term co-opetition, the idea that we collaborate, but there will come a point where then we go and we have our individual opportunities to grow and harvest our market share going forward. But actually, to have that shared vision, to have that shared goal, we need to have people at the center.
Right. That's the biggest part. And these two, it's sort of to bring you in the fold of the tourism frameworks that are derivatives of what's currently now being much more recognized, and in so many ways, as we've shown, the regenerative tourism, leaving a place better than you found it, better for the future generations. And this is the important part of a new version of the sustainable principles that we need to consider. And the circular economy is exactly a reflection of the same thing about reusing and being able to find ways that manage the waste, but also help balance the integration between natural ecosystems and the businesses, our daily lives, and how we recycle foods and recycle different materials to be made into clothing after packaging's been used. So this is very important, and tourism frameworks in the sense that we are a big part of contributing to these.
So I think one of the ways, and what we kind of like to begin to move forward to, is this idea that we need to continue to think of tourism, yes, as something that happens physically in destinations. Of course it does. It's one of the the most the largest global industries. But when we start thinking about how we go forward, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that actually there are many ways in which we don't necessarily have to always rely on people coming to us, but actually we can take experiences to them. So yes, as Fletcher recognises, that there will be segments of the population that will be willing to travel, they really can't wait to get out there. There really is that pent-up demand. But as we've indicated throughout, there will be segments of the population who won't feel very comfortable. So actually, what can we do as destinations, as the tourism industry, to increase the accessibility of our destinations to people who perhaps, despite COVID and the pandemic, who perhaps find tourism inaccessible, who have got limited mobilities, who are unable to create that connection. We did some research a couple of summers ago with a local care home, and what we did was we created virtual experiences of beaches and of woodland walks and recreational walks, and we took it into the care home, and we had such positive results from that. Increased socialization between residents and the care teams. We had one gentleman he'd said that they had left his room for the first time in 18 months for something other than a doctor's appointment, and he is now engaging. So again, the power of tourism, the power of experience, looking at different ways, as we've said before, that we can actually support health and social care, education, a whole range of different opportunities.
Right, it's so good. So just to tap on too, because we only have about 3 minutes left, some of the resources that are indeed out there that can implement, are action oriented to help you further this. One is the Travel Foundation. I'm sorry, but I'm chair of that organization right now, so I can bring it to the table here. But the reason I am also is that we're very pleased that Kathy Ritter is serving as a trustee now on the board, and Visit Flanders, you were saying, Elke is also on our board. This is dedicated without question to the mission of being able to help move forward what would be the regenerative travel tradition. And then the Future of Travel Coalition and the Conscious Traveler, I've given you the websites. And in the Travel Foundation, it's geared towards bringing the destination. It's centered on the destination to help plan, develop, and govern, but also to advocate for change with a new understanding, and innovation is a big part of it, which is what some of you have been managing to do. And that's exactly what this time is for. And then this was an unusual coalition that was built just this year, the Future of Tourism. And it was built with the founding group here, but also includes, I think, Tahoe, the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency is on it, and TOTA that I was talking about before, the Thompson Okanagan. There are now 500 companies and businesses globally that have joined with this organization, or it's not an organization that is putting out everything right now, but it is a coalition of the non-government organizations who are in the marketplace helping to measure criteria so to see how you're performing, different avenues where they have gone through the principle of co-opetition, and they've decided that we don't need to be competing at this time. We need to come together. And how do we do that? Well, we come together in agreeing on 13 guiding principles. And I welcome you to see this later and study the fact that all of these organizations and those have signed up to say, yes, I will work towards these, I will take these on board, and I will operate to protect a sense of place at the end of day. So what are our final reflections? Well, going forward, again, the destinations, you are the heart. You are where all the pulse is, and all of the assets and engagements around are coming through your heart. You need to continue to embrace your collaboration and your partnerships and build them into non-traditional ones as traditional.
Absolutely. And I think the importance of building those partnerships, and actually in many ways confiding in each other, sharing both what has gone well and what the challenges are, because right at the beginning we set this out as being we're all in this together in so many ways. And so the collaboration and partnership is key. And Helen, the idea as well of taking control, we mentioned about the being the hub and being the heart. Actually, as destinations, we do shift from being marketing to managing, and actually spiriting the change and moving this shift towards collaboration and partnership as well.
Which also takes on the distribution systems and supporting the distribution systems to make sure they're agile and responsive and reinventing. But the grassroots effort is exactly what this trade show is about. The Go West Summit is giving the ability for the tour operators and travel agents to talk about what they're trying to think of doing going forward, both domestic and international. So this is the time when your value is really critical. And this is the time when you can tie in even more to unknown destinations as well as the tried and true.
Absolutely. And it's embracing, yes, the domestic markets, but again, as we say, don't relinquish the global relationships. Again, that may seem common sense in many ways, but sometimes when we get so focused on what's happening on our doorsteps, we can forget sometimes about the wider vision and the wider market. And again, looking at how we can make those relationships work even better. Look at the ways in which we can create these new itineraries, these new experiences, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we and as Helen, you said as well, do we want to go back to 2019? We need to be learning lessons. We need to be sharing our experience and creating these new avenues for tourists to experience all the wonders that our destinations have, but to know that they can do that in a way that's safe, in a way that is beneficial for everybody.
And at the end of the day, we not only have a pandemic, and this will be with us for life now, but it doesn't mean it will be in the worst form as the vaccinations come through. We have climate change is massive impact on our industry. So yes, we have to declare an agility to be able to manage that as well. And we're constantly, as an industry, God love us all. We just move and try to adjust and adapt. And that's the best example, certainly for most other sectors that are very very fixed in what they have to do or their equipment that they use when you look at the industry side. So I just encourage you to feel the sense that what you do is still important. What you offer is still so valuable for making sure that people have this spirit of discovery and also the inspiration that you provide through the hard work that you do. So I celebrate you and I wish you good luck at Go West Summit. And I'm sorry I can't see so many of you that are out there that I always held close to my heart, and celebrate what you're doing. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today, and open to questions that you may have as best we can answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Helen and Carolina. What a great presentation. And I agree with you. It is so very important that we all learn from each other and share our successes and share our challenges on a global level. There's so many different activities happening globally, and for us to understand what is happening in our industry and be able to share and communicate, it will only help us all. So we do have a few good questions for you this morning. The first one starts.
I get worried about that because, you know, she is a professor, so I might be graded. We don't get to grade her. I'm just checking on that one.
I think we'll all get a good grade at the end of this, but we'll ask for your feedback. Our first question this morning is, what will be your recommendation in protecting global ecotourism, especially for those doing mice?
Especially for those doing mice, then I think that they would, I'll take it first, Caroline, and then perhaps you could add something to it.
Of course.
Because in the University of Surrey, they have a very good events program as well. But I think that in being able to ensure that ecotourism is, if they are going to the areas that would be most sensitive and vulnerable, it needs to be without question set out as sort of this is the code almost, or respect that needs to be given to the area that you're coming to, and or make sure that the destinations that have those offerings where the ecotourism area could be sensitive, vulnerable, that it's managed and it doesn't get overdone.
I think as well, I mean, I completely agree with what Helen has said. I think the other things that we have to think about are the last few months have shown us how we can do things differently. Now, the events industry, and thank you to the person for asking that question, the MICE, the mice industry has of course been fundamentally and devastatingly affected by this as well. But what we have done, and this is again a great example of what we are still able to do, we can have these blends of the physical and the virtual. So again, linking into what Helen has just said, respecting the fragility of many of the destinations and the landscapes that are offering ecotourism in particular, we can also look at how we can increase the visibility and connectedness to these events by offering different ways of engaging. Again, that may be quite apprehensive and quite daunting for some people who have not engaged in these alternative platforms before, but there are so many examples, and not just within mice, but if we look at festivals around the world who have actually exponentially been able to grow their audience and increase the number of people that are engaging without physically being present. So you can look at that combination of the two.
Plus, there's a give back that if there is an event, Singapore is opening up to a degree now and trying to demonstrate they can do this with a safe environment, trusted environment. But there's a give back that they could. Tourism Cares does a program sometimes where you go to the meeting, and I know this at WTTC for the summit, then we would do something together for the community, planting trees, clearing an area that was associated with that summit as a way of giving back as well. And then the third thing that let's talk commercial real estate in cities. That in itself is a whole new conundrum. But right now you have 2 million square feet, 2 million square feet of convention space in Orlando. are you going to be able to use all of that? Right now it's sitting there, it needs to be maintained, but it can be converted. So I think you need to think of repurposing some of the physical space, because now people have gotten more used to this hybrid interaction. Nothing will ever replace the people-to-peopleness that's so important and is the base of our industry for both deal making and also learning from each other. But I think that it doesn't mean that it needs to be destructive to the environment at the same time.
Great, thank you. Another good question. There is so much data currently in the marketplace from all different resources and globally. What is the best source of data on international travel to the USA?
Well, that's an opinion that would be hard for me to render without acknowledging that the Survey of International Air Travelers has been the base of the opportunity for understanding and seeing the travelers that are coming in and being profiled for the United States. And that's done by the National Travel and Tourism Office. I think Julie Heiser's in the audience, and a shout out to you and your team there. If Isabel's there, shout out to you as well, who heads up the office. But the robustness of this survey instrument is probably a little weakened now because there's not a lot of international travelers coming. So you also have the Longwoods, Miles Longwoods survey that I think has a robust way with panels for certainly the American market. For the international market, I know in Travel Foundation we're partnering with the Euromonitor, and they have strengthened in their capabilities of reaching out to certainly through their panels to a plethora of international travelers or international resource segments. So I would see those as the first three. It depends upon what you're seeking. If you're trying to find behavior, there's one source. If you're trying to find economic value, there's tourism economics as well as Oxford economics. There's other resources, and some of them are consolidated central points, and some of that may come through organizations like UNWTO. They're doing a lot on the social impact, and WTTC, they do economic impact, and now they're embarking as well on some of the social impact evaluations. So, and then there are some good regional surveying document houses that are doing some good work inside the region, in the Asia Pacific region, for instance. It could be a different source. So it depends upon what you're seeking. Sorry, I kind of like just went, nah, here are all the ones I know of right now.
No, I was sitting listening. It's like, no, she's mentioned all the ones that I would mention. So yeah.
Okay, good.
I think the key thing, just as Helen said, I think the key thing is when you're looking for the data that's out there is just be very clear on what it is you're asking. And I know that sounds such a simple thing to say, and I don't mean to be patronizing in any way, shape or form, but having that clarity on what it is you're asking of the data is really vital, because as Helen says, and as the question very rightly recognizes, there are so many different sources of data that's out there.
Thank you. Another good question. With the economic stress of COVID, what would motivate a small business to change its direction and adhere to the principles that you were talking about this morning?
Can you repeat the question, please? That was a good one.
Yeah.
What would a small business be able to do to adhere to some of the principles we were just talking about, the reinventing, the heart of the soul of the place, and then if I'm a mom and pop in a destination, how do I further that, or a tour operator that's not robust but has a certain lineage?
Yeah, these small businesses are under such stress right now economically, and so what you're talking about is so important. So if we can motivate the destination, we can motivate the big picture. How do we get it down to the small business?
Right, to the granular part.
Really looking to get back, get financially strong again. And their motivation would be to take whatever business they can to make themselves viable again. But these all of the principles that you've talked about this morning are so important. We have an opportunity to change at this very moment. We're starting almost from scratch. How do we motivate the small business, and how do they motivate the consumer to think about these principles in a different way and change this dynamic of our industry?
I'll just pick up on that to start. I think one of the things that, of course, we recognize in all of this is that no one is able to spin on a penny or spin on a cent and make these changes. And I think that is something that we are very much empathizing towards. I think one of the key things, and it's certainly come out through research that we had done, it was before COVID, but the research that we had done on collaboration and partnership was actually it's the savings you can make in terms of resources, in terms of resource allocation, in terms of, you know, marketing and visibility. If you are able to create itineraries where you partner with, if for example you are a tour operator, and if you partner with other organizations, again, what you're doing is you're sharing the load, as it were. You're carrying that burden together, and so through these partnerships you increase your visibility, you increase your potential market that you can tap into. There are several examples within our local area where there are, say, a hotel and a restaurant and an attraction, and then a complementary attraction will work together, and they will create an itinerary. There's some really interesting work that we're doing at the university at the moment about exactly that as well, along the south of England. So whilst it's a recognition that we don't make that immediate change because we can't do everything at once. We're going through a global pandemic. You know, for some of us it is just survival at this point in time, and to say anything else would be disrespectful in many ways. But I think but this is also the time, to my mind, where actually picking up the phone, having a Zoom call, a Teams call, whatever, with another organization who you know and you trust, and just having those frank and open opportunity conversations, there are ways to start this going forward. It's something that will take time in many ways.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why it's a restart in some ways. It's because this is over time. And so there'll be the base business that you're going to have to snag that in order to continue to be viable. But I think what the mainstay of what certainly Caroline's espousing here is that it's really, don't do it in a silo. You know, there could be two operators that you work with side by side in competition that maybe right now you join forces with and say, you know what, we'll have a stronger force if the three of us work together because we're working the German market. There must be a way that you could bring them into Colorado, send them over to California, and then go on to Hawaii because that's your expertise, this is my expertise, and use the opportunity for the other trend of longer travel, longer stays people want to do. And it doesn't have to just be the international. We're ready to get out, yes, maybe so, but let's do it in a way that then you, in building it, communicate, great, we really want to welcome you, but you know, we have a new neighborhood now, and we have a new way of welcoming you because we want you to be part of our community responsibly. We're going to set you up to come, but you have to respect our values too and protect us and conserve. And that's how I would see it. And it is no easy flip of the switch, as Caroline said. Mm-hmm. So I have great sympathy in what you're trying to do and hanging on, but you will get there, I promise you, with this kind of collaboration and co-opetition.
Exactly. Thank you so very much. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We've got a lot of incredible questions still, but we've got to wrap it up for today. And again, I would remind everybody that this will be posted on our Go West Summit website. And we encourage you, we've got some great webinars coming up for the rest of the week. We encourage you to participate in all of them. And one more time, our heartfelt thanks to Helen and Caroline. Thank you so much for your expertise.
And if you provide us with the questions, we're happy to work on some of the answers for them.
Thank you so very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.